So, my girlfriend Augustina and I recently celebrated 1 year of being in a relationship together, and it got me thinking about what does it mean to be a good boyfriend in 2023. So, we previously watched some dating advice from the 1950s, which was pretty fun.
Yeah, it was.
But yeah, it got me thinking more about like the modern era and how being a good boyfriend has changed and what you think maybe women expect from their boyfriend these days.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've written down some points that I think might be the kind of things that you would say, and I just wanted to talk about those, and maybe you could share some advice for the audience who are looking to be the best boyfriend they can, or maybe they're entering the dating pool and looking for a partner. So the first thing I wrote down, which I think is the most fundamental element of any relationship, is just honesty.
I agree with that. I think that's been one of the pillars of our relationship, and something that I've really appreciated about us and you is that I know that there's a lot of weight behind what you tell me, and that I can expect the truth from you, and that even if it's something that maybe doesn't feel the greatest to tell me, or like is hard to say, that you're going to tell me the truth no matter what.
Yeah, and I think the biggest problem is when people lie in a relationship or any situation is you end up creating this alternative reality, which you have to try and keep up with. And you have to try and remember the lies that you told and the stories that you've created. So I think it just simplifies your life and will always lead you on the right path if you tell the truth.
Yeah. I mean, also there's just this like wonderful... Like when you have that honesty with your partner, you're investing in a foundation between the two of you that's really, really strong. Like there's something very safe and comforting about knowing that we have that between us. And I think if you're in a relationship where you don't have that, it can feel, I don't know, just like you don't have solid ground beneath your feet. And I feel like I have solid ground beneath my feet with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So. And I feel the same way about you. And I think another like big difference between like not lying and just being honest is some people will use like white lies as an excuse, or they'll hide the truth. But in my opinion, that's the same as lying.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think the difference is between just being honest and trust?
Well, being honest is just being like forthcoming and truthful, but you can be like, you can come home after like sticking your dick in some random girl and be like, sorry, sweetie, stuck my dick in some girl, just couldn't help it. That doesn't make you trustworthy.
Sure.
It just makes you honest about being
untrustworthy.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So, I mean, you're also trustworthy. Like, I have zero doubts that you would ever do something that I'm not proud of.
Well, thank you. And what about consistency? What does consistency mean to you in a relationship?
That's a good question. I think it just means continuing to show up. Like all relationships have their ups and downs and their bumps in the road. And that can make it harder to do the work, to put in the effort, to treat things with the same importance or vigor or like delicacy, but doing that anyways, even when it's hard. And I think sometimes that like, especially for newer couples, when you have those like first little bumps in the road or like difficulties, there's this tendency to back off and not show up in the same way. And I think that's when you have what you might call like as they were saying in I think it was the dating video, like what it means to be constant, or in this case, consistency. I think it's the more modern word for that.
I think a lot of men of like the previous generation as well felt like they had to have the same consistent feelings and be the same person all the time, and that was like part of being a man, was very rigid. Whereas how do you think that's changed now?
I mean, I think one of the great things about right now is that there's more flexibility to explore who you are. But I don't think that changes the way that you show up in your relationship. Like, you can explore different facets of who you are. You can enjoy those different sides to yourself, or like grow and change like in possibly beautiful ways. But I don't think that needs to affect how the effort you put into your relationship, the like forging onward when things are tricky. just because you're experiencing different things or exploring new sides to yourself.
Right, yeah. And there's still that trust and honesty is
Yeah.
consistent. Yeah.
Yeah.
What does a supportive boyfriend look like to you?
I feel like that might be a tricky question because that's going to be different for every person. So I think, like, what's important is to like ask your girlfriend and have that open line of communication. Like, what does she need in general? Like, what are the things that make her feel supported and loved and taken care of? And kind of understanding that as like a two-pronged thing. Like, what are the things in like overall general life that she wants from you to feel supported, and what are the things that might change on like a week-to-week basis? Like, is something difficult going on with her job that week? Is she having family issues? Like, what are the extra ways that you can show up for her with the fluctuations of life, and assuming that you have a good partner who's worth that work that you're putting in, she's going to be doing the same thing for you.
I think a lot of men, when they hear the word supportive, they immediately think of financial support. Do you think that's like a necessarily important element to a relationship today?
I don't think so. I mean, I think it's different for every couple. It could be a relationship where like that is an element where a man is providing more of the financial support, or who knows, maybe the woman's providing more of the financial support. But I think the reason that has gotten such a bad rap is that in the past, a lot of the times it was presented to men that if they provided the financial support for women, that meant they didn't have to show up emotionally. And I think they were looking at the trade-off as I provide financial support, and therefore she's going to be doing the domestic and emotional labor. And I think that trade-off is, when you're looking at it, it's truly like time is money, right? So if you're going to be providing that financial aspect, then there's probably some other work she's doing on the side, like the domestic labor. Maybe she's doing more of the domestic labor, or maybe she's a stay-at-home mom, and so she's actually providing something into that relationship that like you could quantifiably measure. But emotional labor is not something that you can quantifiably measure like that, and therefore deserves to be outside of that equation.
Yeah.
And I think once that's a little bit better understood, then I think there can be more acceptance of like a relationship where someone is more of the breadwinner and someone is doing other parts of the relationship. I feel like that's been a little bit demonized recently, as like the trap that women have been like put into. But I think because a lot of that has come with, and then the men aren't doing any emotional labor, and they're not like parenting their children and like other things.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are some things which I think you can trade off, you know, like you said, financial support in exchange for looking after the house, or you know, taking care of those types of things that theoretically you could just pay somebody to do instead. But like quality time, being emotionally available to your partner isn't something that money can be a trade-off for. So I think also, like, if you're a man and you think that you can just be a financial provider and not be available with quality time or emotionally, then you're more likely to attract a woman that doesn't care about those things and is inherently more seeking a lifestyle from you rather than you for who you are.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. I think like an important part of being supportive is just being a good listener and being there for somebody when they've had a tough day, or to celebrate the important parts of their life. So what are some like listening skills that you look out for in a relationship? Something that you think shows like emotional availability when you're trying to open up?
That is a good question.
Apart from don't zone out, you know.
I think asking questions to understand better. I think also, like, if you're very new in your relationship, being open to the fact that she might not be ready to share all the details yet, and not taking that as an affront, but just something to like a bridge to cross a little bit later on when that foundation is more solidly there. One thing that I will say, I feel like this is something that more typically like we see with men who are listening, but it's actually a problem that I had, something that I do. And it kind of negatively impacted my relationship with my best friend for a while. It's like when you hear someone present you with like a problem, this thing that's causing them to like suffer in their life, most of us want to jump in and provide solutions and be like, well, what if you tried this? Or like, hey, I know about this thing. Like, do you want to do that instead? Like, we want to, like, when you see someone you love hurting, you want to help them. And sometimes people just want you to be like, oh man, that sucks. Like, that's terrible. I'm so sorry that happened to you. And they just want to receive sympathy rather than having you try to jump in and manage their problems. And that's something that it took me a couple years to learn how to do. But once you master that, you can just say like, hey, do you want like a sympathetic ear? Do you want a shoulder to cry on? Or do you want me to help you with your problems? And if you have trouble reading that situation, then just asking that simple question can really solve you a lot of, I don't know.
Yeah,
problems.
I think men struggle with that generally more than women do.
I agree.
Because I think also like generally we're more logical and oftentimes like we want a solution when we have a problem. I think men generally seek less like emotional sympathy for an issue. Like personally, I'd rather resolve things immediately. I look for solutions. So when you come to me with a problem, I'm always thinking about the solution. And yeah, it does take like a deliberate shift of gear to just be emotionally attentive. And like sometimes personally, I don't always understand why you wouldn't just want solutions, but I think that's just something about human nature and female nature I've had to learn.
I mean, there are things that you said with that I just agree with, but I want to backtrack a little bit. I don't think that men are necessarily more logical than women. I think that men just tend to feel safer or have been socialized to express certain sides of the emotional spectrum that women aren't, and that they still feel those emotions. They just don't get to express them. So I think like just being sad about something and like wanting like a hug or a cuddle is something that's a lot harder for men to ask for, and so they'll just be like quiet and withdrawn instead.
Yeah, there are some things in life as well where there is no solution, like losing a loved one or something. There's nothing that you can offer or suggest to somebody to make that situation better. So that's definitely one of those times where that ability gets tested. But I think a lot of the time, especially like as guys, we see things as like obstacles or problems to be fixed. And like if you're feeling sad about something, it's like, what can I do to not feel this way anymore? Whereas sometimes, yeah, you need to be a bit more in tune and sympathetic with people.
I think so. I mean, I think a lot of that drive to just initially like treat a problem like a puzzle to be solved or an obstacle or something like that is because we tell men that it's not okay to have these emotions that are considered feminine or considered weak. And so instead of just being comfortable sitting with that emotion, the way that we tell women it's okay to be, men have to solve it in order to not be stuck in that place that is socially considered not okay for them.
Do you think it's bad though to be like? Do you think do you think it's a good idea to wallow in certain emotional states?
Well, I didn't say wallow, sweetheart.
Okay.
I said sit with an emotion to process it. There's a difference between experiencing emotion and like sitting with it than just being like, well, woe is me. I'm just gonna like settle into this and be a stick in the mud.
Which plenty of guys do, actually. Like a lot of them do.
Yeah, I think so. I think the key to life is balance and moderation. And I think sometimes because of the way that men are like socialized, that sometimes they don't get that experience that women get to have.
Yeah, okay. Well, my next point was about being selfish. And how do you think you can demonstrate that you're not a selfish person in a relationship?
I mean, I think the first thing that people might think of is like just like little things like gift giving and stuff like that. But I don't think that actually makes someone not selfish. I think going out of your way to do things for someone that isn't immediately beneficial to you. So doing things without an expectation of something in return is showing that you're not a selfish person. Like,
Yeah.
if you're buying her dinner because you think that you're going to get laid, that's a selfish giving.
That's true.
Versus
yeah.
like taking her out to dinner to her favorite place because like, you know, it's going to make her happy and there's no expectation of something else. That would be like an unselfish way of giving.
That's a good point, yeah. And we don't really talk about this on this channel yet, but like when it comes to in the bedroom, you know, do you think selfishness can play a big role there and cause a lot of problems?
I think it could if you're kind of just like so excited about it that you're thinking about your own experience, then like your partner is probably not going to have a good time.
Yeah.
But I think for a lot of men, like once they like for every partner, there's a learning curve. Like it's not like you can just learn to like give good oral and you know how to like please all women all out there. Like every woman's going to be different, right? Once you and your partner have kind of like explored that together and treated it like it's something good to get to explore with your partner, you know, that like turning your partner on is incredibly exciting. Like doesn't it feel good to know that like you caused that in another person? Like in a way you end up gaining more for yourself by putting a good amount of attention and a good amount of focus on what makes your partner happy.
I think so, yeah. And I especially think in the early stages of like those kinds of interactions, it's important to be like entirely focused on the other person's pleasure. And like I think that men in the early stages of dating should be focused on what they're giving rather than what they're taking. Like in the same way that I always think men should pay the bill and like pick her up and like coordinate some nice dates and like take the burden on themselves to plan that and to make that happen. I think the same applies to more physical things early on in the relationship. You know, further down the road you can, you know, talk about what you both like and explore things together. But I think in the early stages, the onus is on men to really put the effort in and show the woman what kind of a life that they could have if they entered into a relationship.
I think so. I mean, also, I will say, at least in my experience, like men sexually are a little bit simpler creatures. The man is probably going to have like a physically enjoyable time no matter what.
Sure.
Unless you've like gone home with Godzilla or like a swamp monster, you're probably going to enjoy yourself. Whereas I think women are there's more of like what's going to make a woman happy. Like there's a bigger variety.
Spectrum,
there's no like one size fits all.
Yeah.
So it's more, I think the learning side can be a little bit more based on what's going to make the woman happy than what's going to make a guy happy.
And do you think a lot of that is also emotional factors and mental factors which seem to matter less to men in terms of sexual activity?
I think it's all very person to person. I think there's plenty of men out there who need more of an emotional connection before they feel able to connect sexually. And I think there's plenty of women out there who just also want to scratch an itch in a way that we typically ascribe to men.
Yeah.
So I honestly don't feel like that's a good division of like male and female. But I think that's also something where like as partners, that's a little bit of like a compatibility thing. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
If you just have someone who's trying to scratch an itch and you have someone who wants to emotionally connect,
yeah, there's friction
there might be a little bit more of like a bridge to gap between the two of them.
Yeah, good point. This is going to be a long video, but we'll just keep going. Okay, this is an interesting point because I feel like this is very relevant to a lot of discussions about masculinity that happen on the internet and reflecting on old-fashioned ideas versus modern ideas. So the point that I wrote down was to be a good boyfriend, don't be a coward. So, you know, what do you think that means both in a more obvious like, physical sense and, you know, also an emotional sense and being mentally tough?
That's a good question. I mean, I feel like in the obvious sense of it is that the world is a more dangerous place for women. And one of the things that I love so much about our relationship is that you make me feel safe. Like, you moved in 3 weeks ago and I haven't had to be scared at night for 3 weeks now, and that makes me feel so good. And I think being able to provide that protective element for your partner is something really beautiful. I think part of that, like, there's the obvious ways of just like being present. Like, a lot of the time men are like more physically capable, you know, if danger were to present itself. But I think a lot of men have like this typical view of like a rapist in a dark alley and I'd punch his lights out or something like that, which, yeah, that happens. That is a problem, you know? But I think a lot of the time, until you spend a lot of one-on-one time with a woman, men don't understand how many things that we do every single day to protect ourselves.
And when it comes to like your relationship more domestically, what are some like emotional and mental things that a good boyfriend should show to be brave and strong?
I think willing to be vulnerable is really brave.
Right.
I think that's, like we were talking about earlier, like vulnerability and like some of these emotions that we sometimes say like men don't have because they have to be more logical or they have to be the protector or something like that. Just being willing to share those, even though it's hard.
Yeah.
Having difficult conversations, or just like, again, like we were talking about, forging ahead when things are tricky. You know?
Yeah. And where do you think the line comes between being vulnerable and open and trustworthy versus overly emotional, difficult to handle, to be around, too unpredictable, you know, going towards too chaotic?
I think that there's that has to do more with like self-regulation. Like it's okay to be sad or angry, or sad because your partner did something, or angry because your partner did something. But it's important to have responsibility for your own emotions and have responsibility for your own role in self-regulation.
For the actions that you take because of those emotions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's never your partner. Like, it's never like your partner made you angry, so therefore like you just didn't talk to her for 3 days or something like that, you know? So that's, I think, the difference between being volatile and having that balance of recognizing an emotion and sharing an emotion, but not placing an unnecessary burden on someone else because you're not being responsible with it.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people try and define emotions or characteristics that are positive as either masculine or feminine, but a lot of the time it's just being an adult. You know, the most important thing is not to be childish. Whether you are somebody who tends to be slightly more emotional or you're somebody who feels more stoic and that works well for you, I think the important thing is to not be childish about either approach and to understand yourself better and to be able to conduct yourself as an adult regardless of the way you feel. Yeah, I like this one because I think this is really important to be a good boyfriend, is to have a plan. Yeah, okay. So like both in the early stages of dating and, you know, like in our relationship, I think that's one of the best things about us and things that keeps things exciting is that we plan fun activities and we make things to look forward to. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a part of why when we have quality time, like, it's so rich.
Yeah.
That we have that.
Absolutely. And, you know, I spend a lot of time, I work full time. I have this channel. I'm studying in night school right now. So I don't have a lot of free time. So when we do set aside quality time, I want to make sure that it is really enjoyable for us and we're having some valuable experiences. You know, I don't just want to be watching Netflix on the TV with you. Yeah, like it's important for me that we create new memories together and go new places.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I love about you is that I feel like life feels like an adventure with you, and that's because our quality time has like so much of that element where I feel like I'm exploring or doing new things with you, and it feels that's something that you've like planned and put a lot of thought into, but also like it feels good to be doing those things by your side.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, like, to all the single guys watching this, I don't think you need to have a partner or to be dating to make life feel like an adventure. Like, I think this is an attitude and mindset that I have and because we're in a relationship, we do these things together, and I apply it to us as a couple. But like, I've always been somebody that wants to have fulfilling free time and do interesting things and have variety. So to have you on that journey with me makes it all the more special.
Also, I think one quick thing I'd add in there is
Yeah.
that you don't have to have a huge budget to do
No,
things. Like,
no.
right today, we're going to go have a picnic. And so that's like, I think we're just getting a couple groceries.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
don't think we're going to be spending more than like $25 to have a really nice afternoon together.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's more about like coming up with an idea or a plan, or like even if you're inviting a girl to coffee on a date, like you can make that more exciting by like finding an interesting coffee shop, or you know, maybe they have like a special drink and you say, oh, we should go here because they have this, I think you would like it.
Yes.
You know, you can make a mundane thing sound a lot more appealing by putting more thought into it.
I 100% agree.
Okay, make her feel beautiful inside and out. What are some of the ways that I make you feel beautiful in terms of your appearance and on the outside?
I mean, I feel like a lot of the time you just tell me, like, you look so pretty, or like, I like the way that you did your eye makeup, or like, you tell me that you're proud to be seen with me and things like that. So, and also, like, I think this is true of anyone. Like, when I feel like he looks really good, like, I feel more like affectionate with him, and like, I just feel so drawn to him that like it's hard to keep my hands off him. And so I feel like sometimes I see a little bit more of that with you when you feel like I'm looking particularly good.
Yeah, I mean, like, we both are interested in style, so obviously, like, this is probably more important to us than, like, it is a regular couple, but that's, like, something that I really value in a partner, and I obviously want to be that to you as well. And what about making you feel beautiful as a person, you know, for your emotions, for your personality, the things you believe in?
I think you do a good job of that. I mean, I'll give one little example. I'm a midwife and I deliver babies, and every time I go off to a birth, you tell me how proud you are of me.
I am. I'm very proud of it, yeah.
And that makes me feel like you see all the parts of me, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure if you're watching this and you have a girlfriend or a wife, there'll be something about her that you know, always are proud of, regardless of if you're in a good place or a bad place, you've had an argument, there's always something that you can go back to and, you know, reassure her that you love that thing about her and make her feel good on the inside. So do you think to be a good boyfriend, it's important to have good style, good grooming, and things like that?
I think I'm going to say something that you don't like.
Okay.
In our relationship, yes,
Right.
because you and I both have a touch of vanity, and that extends to each other.
I don't know what you mean.
So in our relationship, like if you suddenly just only started wearing athleisure and stopped doing your hair and stuff like that, I'd be like,
Right.
you know? But I think other couples were like, appearance is maybe not so important to them, that's not the biggest thing. I would say don't detract from yourself by not taking care of yourself. Like, don't let yourself go just because you've gotten into a relationship. Like, don't stop going to the gym just because you landed a girlfriend, right? But I think we're a little bit more of an extreme case than
we
most
are.
couples.
Absolutely.
But I'm guessing your audience is also very like appearance oriented, and so I'd say
At least interested in it. But you know what I think a lot of guys would benefit from is like when you're going on that date night with your girlfriend or something, just dress up a little bit nicer than you normally would.
Of
Like
course.
put on that shirt or like those boots or something, or you know, take a little bit more attention to your skincare or your hair. And I think that like any woman would really appreciate that.
of course.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I mean, I just saw this TikTok recently that went, I don't know if it went viral, but there were a lot of stitches with it, kind of like roasting this guy. Like they were on a date night and his girlfriend was in this like beautiful like dress, like her hair was done, she was wearing like her makeup was well done, like she looked immaculate, and they were at this very nice restaurant, and he was wearing like a baggy t-shirt and gym shorts and basketball shoes.
Yeah.
And she was just like, I spent an hour getting ready for this, and I don't think you put on deodorant today.
Yeah. Well, I think in a lot of couples, you will see like a a gap almost. It looks like the woman's going to one event and the guy's going
Yes.
to another. So I think, you know, as a guy, it's nice to level up a little bit and you know, like pay a little bit of attention to what your girl is wearing, because I think often people want to be with somebody that's quite like them. So like for us, we're both very into dressing up and we pay a lot of attention to style, and aesthetics is kind of like a love language for us. But you know, it might be to a lesser extent for some couple, but if your girl's wearing like a nice dress to dinner, then maybe shorts and a t-shirt isn't what you should go for. You know, maybe she would appreciate it if you just leveled up things a little bit.
I also, and this video is so long, but I'm going to go on another little tangent here. I think sometimes men avoid dressing up like that because they're not sure that they're going to do it right. And then I think sometimes that can make them insecure about their woman dressing up. Like so many times I've heard women talk about like, my man's like, oh, who are you dressing for? And it's like, she's probably dressing for you, but you're not appreciating it or like reciprocating. And now it does look like this gap. And so you're like, why is she peacocking? It's because you need to step it up a little bit. She's trying to show you that like she wants to look good for you. Like she wants to make you happy.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if you did the same thing for her.
I agree. Yeah. And I don't think in any relationship, you should never ask somebody to, you know, like level down to make you feel better. If anything, it's just an indication that you need to improve, whether that's style, whether that's emotional availability, whether that's finances. You know, like there are all things that people give as indications of what they're expecting from their partner. I think it's about being in tune with those.
I very much agree with that. I think that was very well put.
Yeah, thank you. Well, you know, obviously this channel is mostly about style. We've been doing some more dating videos lately, and I would love to keep going on with those topics. But if you enjoyed this video, check out the other videos, especially if you're looking to level up your style. Maybe you've got a date night coming up. Maybe you're going to be going out with a new girl for the first time. You want to impress her. So check out my videos for some extra tips on how to look good. So I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one, and I hope you have a good week.